My name is Dr. Michael Brown, and this is 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the strategic choices that all of us can make in order to be fully alive. Today in the studio is my friend, Luke Woolard, who talks about this notion of being all out, specifically being too much, living life to the fullest extent, spreading positivity, making intentional choices, and living life on purpose. Listen in. So Luke, welcome to the 3 Words podcast studio. It is a rare day when I have someone of your youth, if I can use that term, in our studio. But as I've mentioned to you, even off camera, a huge part of our demographic for 3 Words podcast, our viewers and listeners, are young men between the ages of 20 and 25 years old. So I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, and I'm thinking, man, I want our viewers to get to know you as well. So first time in the 3 Words podcast studio. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, first, I'm so grateful to be here. So excited, and I'm excited to talk. So yeah, my name is Luke Woolard. I was born and raised in Ohio, and I'm currently in college. I'm a sophomore studying systems engineering, and I'm also the captain of the cross country team. And I love to get involved in as many ways as possible. And yeah.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you here. And so you have chosen these 3 words for today, and they are...
Be too much.
Be too much. Now, that's such an interesting 3-word phrase. I'm curious why you selected that particular phrase and why it is important to you.
Yeah, so be too much to me has really 2 different meanings. Be too much can mean, I take on a lot of responsibilities, but also can mean that I'm a lot in terms of my personality. And really, this started for me at a young age. Really started with my parents. I know, hi, mom and dad. I know they're watching right now. But they always encouraged me to be a lot, even at a young age, getting involved in different sports. They had me start playing the cello. They had me doing, the math club and the United Nations club. And for me at the time, it was hard to digest. I was doing a lot of different things, and most kids my age weren't as involved as I was. But as I grew older and I kept, I stayed involved with all these different activities through high school and a lot of them through college. And I come to learn that these were really exciting opportunities. And I grew so much as a person. I met so many, even a lot of my best friends to this day, so many of those connections I've made through my parents having me get involved at such a young age. And it's something that as I've grown older, I've gathered a lot of appreciation for.
I'm going to hit pause right now in the middle of my conversation with Luke to encourage you to share this particular episode with someone who might need just a little nudge in living life a little farther outside their comfort zone. Now back to the conversation. Well, and you talk about being too much in regards to activity and engagement and proactivity and so forth. And again, I've experienced that from you. It seems like even on campus, you do a lot, but you don't ever seem to be overly tired. You seem to be energized by the activities that you do.
Yeah, for me, each opportunity I have to involve myself in these responsibilities is a blessing to me. And that's been my attitude my whole life. Each opportunity to take on a new responsibility, to do a new job, do a new sport, meet new people is a blessing to me, because there's people in the world that don't have access to those responsibilities. You don't get those kind of opportunities. So for me, just putting myself out of my comfort zone, taking these challenges it's a blessing to me. And that's what I tell myself. I tell myself that when I wake up every day. I tell that to myself when I go to bed. Like, I am so blessed every day to do what I do, to be around the people that I interact with every day. And that gets me through the hard days too.
Yeah, for sure. So not only to do what you do, but to be who you are. So you talked about 2 sides of the coin, where you talked about, hey, my engagement, I'm doing these things from a very young age. I was super involved, taking advantage of opportunities. But sometimes when we hear the phrase, be too much, or you are too much, oftentimes it's referring to a personality that's big and bold, and some would even say a lot. It's funny. I may have shared this on a previous podcast episode, but I'll never forget the day when I was driving my son Jameson to his school, and I was waving at people as I was driving him, and it's only probably a 5-minute commute. And Jameson's like, "Do you know that guy? Do you know that person? Do you know?" I was like, "No, but I'm just being friendly." He's like, "Dad, I'm going to share with you what the kids know is true, and I'm just going to say it." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "You're a lot." And I was like, in many ways, he was saying, "You're too much." Do you ever get that kind of feedback?
Oh, I've gotten that feedback a lot throughout my life, and I'm the same way. Like, people, I'm an optimist and I'm very outgoing. I'm an extrovert. That's how people have always put it. And like, I'll be in a new situation and I'm usually the guy that's going up and saying hi to a complete stranger and I'm getting to know them. And I've had a lot of that feedback throughout my life. People will be like, how do you know all of these people? And a lot of the times I don't know them. It's just me putting myself out there, trying to make connections. And it is, again, people have, a lot of people think that I'm a lot, and that's just part of my personality is, I am, a lot of people have called me a ball of energy, but that's something that's part of my identity, is that I love being a lot and I love going out and interacting with people and just spreading positive energy, because there's a lot of people that do appreciate that as well.
Well, and I think you're talking about more than even your personality, Luke. I think you're talking about your intentionality and you're talking about your choices. I mean, you're in a mentoring group with me with 25 other guys. And when you walk into the room, you light up the place.
Yeah.
And you're walking around, you're like, I don't think we have met. And that's not just your personality. You have cultivated those choices, those rhythms, those routines. And in those spaces that I've been with you, it's energizing. You're bringing energy and enthusiasm into that space. But I'm guessing sometimes when people say to Luke Woolard, dude, you are a lot, or you are too much, I'm guessing they're meaning that more with a sarcastic tone, or maybe not in a positive light. Do you experience that as well?
Yes, I've had a lot of conversations with people throughout my life who say like, you're a lot. And even though a lot of times it's coming off more sarcastic, it's not easy to take that sometimes. And, I've had some times in the past where I've heard a lot of honest feedback, whether it's from coaches or family or friends, where like, I'm too much. And, I've had times where I've had a little bit of self-doubt, and it's tough when people have that kind of feedback, because I've always been a big advocate of being yourself, no matter how people look at you, no matter people are going to judge you, no matter no matter who you are, people are going to judge you. That's just the world we live in. And I've gotten a lot better at accepting that and being myself no matter what. But there has been times throughout my life where I've wondered, like, am I really too much? And, it's not easy to take that kind of feedback sometimes.
Well, I'm guessing some of it comes from a place of care and constructive criticism, particularly if it comes from coaches and parents, I would imagine. But I'm also, you use this term judgy, judgment, and people judge each other. I'm guessing that some individuals who may encounter you will take a shot at it because they're jealous and they're comparing themselves to you, and they don't have that kind of energy and they're not making that kind of intentionality. And quite honestly, what you're exhibiting is confidence. In many ways, you're probably choosing your way into confidence, because there's probably times where you walk into a situation, you're like, I don't feel the confidence, but you're going to choose confidence by going up and introducing yourself to people and bringing energy into the room. We actually did another episode, 3 Words Podcast, with my good friend, Dr. Russell Catania, and it was be the thermostat. So don't just be the thermometer that just becomes and adjust to the temperature in the room, but actually set the temperature in the room. And I'm guessing when you walk into a room, Luke, you set the temperature, which probably makes some people uneasy. Honestly, I'm thinking because they're jealous. Have you experienced, you talked about judgment, but do you think on the backside of judgment might be some jealousy and some comparison that's going on?
I think so. Yeah. And I think people have different, like you said, I 100% agree. People have different ways of expressing those feelings. And so a lot of times I've come to learn that, a lot of times it is, people are caring about you. It's constructive criticism, but people just have different ways of showing feelings like jealousy, envy. And that's something I've learned over time. And I think part of that's also given me some confidence, not in the sense of their jealousy, but in the sense of like, just be yourself. And I've always said this to people. You talked about like walking into a room, kind of like a thermostat. For me, like being an extrovert and being confident in myself, it's a choice. I've had people ask me like, how are you so extroverted? Like, were you just born with this? And for me, it's like, no, it's a choice. Like every day I wake up and I choose to be the one that brings that positive mindset wherever I may be, because I know that that's going to it might make people uneasy at first, but I know in the end, it's going to bring them up as well as bring myself up.
Well, you talk about this. You've said this a couple occasions now where you're like, when I wake up in the morning, I tell myself, do you have a certain morning ritual that you go through, or what does your morning look like to actually set the stage or to set the pace for you being who you are?
Yeah. So my morning ritual is, a lot of it is with a lot of things I have on my plate. Like there's always a lot going on. I love to write down like my goals for the day. So whether a lot of times it's specific tasks, but a lot of times it's something like, oh, like be a good friend today. Like, make a phone call to someone that I haven't talked to in a while. For me, I have a lot on my plate, but I also try to leave time for the things that are most important, which is, being positive, spreading kindness, and just being there for my friends, my family, and also myself is a big part of my day. And so when I take the time to look at what's ahead of me for the day, I make sure to I always give myself a confidence booster. I'm like, you got this. Like you're going to crush the day, and you're going to do it with a smile on your face.
So you actually talk to yourself.
Yeah.
You actually have that conversation with yourself as a part of your morning, making lists, thinking, being proactive. Obviously, as a part of our mentoring community, we talk a lot about designing the week, designing the day, being intentional. But you're not just designing your schedule and your to-do list. You're actually designing and choosing your attitude to the point where you're like, I'm actually going to choose today to be too much.
Yeah. Like I'm choosing, and we've talked about this too, like I'm choosing to be the person that I want to be when I grow up. And like people say like, oh, we've talked about this, people talk about what they want to be when I grow up. And my first thought isn't an occupation or where I'm going to live. It's like the kind of person I want to be. I want to be the kind of person that is too much. I spread joy, I spread positivity. And I hope that the confidence that I bring I can spread that light to others and spread that positivity to them as well, which again is a big part of my morning rituals. And what I tell myself is spread positivity, because I know it's not just going to bring myself up, but it's going to bring all those around me up as well.
I'm guessing as we pull back the curtain, there's been times where individuals have shared with you, you're just way too much, or maybe been a little bit critical of the positivity that you're spreading or the person that you are. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how you manage that? Because I'm guessing there's going to be folks listening to this going, man, I want to do that, but I'm just nervous about what people will say about me, how they'll feel about me. Will they judge me? How have you navigated that? Do you get a lot of criticism for who you are?
I have, yes. I've gotten a fair amount of criticism for who I am. And again, I think a lot of it is through the care of people's hearts and constructive criticism, but it is tough. And I've had a lot of reflection on myself, what is being too much? Like, how do people view that? And another thing that a lot of people are always like, oh, you're too positive. And I've learned over time that positivity is a really good thing, but at the same time, it's also empathy is another big skill that I've gotten better at. In the past, if someone was coming to me and they were struggling with something, whether it was, a minor or something major, I was always the first to kind of spread, be positive. But what I've learned over time through some hard conversations with family, friends, is that that's not always what people need. Empathy is a big thing that I've learned. And sometimes it's okay to not always be, it's okay to not always be positive. If someone's going through something, it's good to be empathetic and try and get into their shoes and see what they're feeling. But then you can use that to, spread that positive energy still while also being there for them, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
It's, and this is something I've learned, through high school, through college, is that it's okay to be empathetic and not always 100% be positive, because life, you're going to have challenges, and that's just part of life. And I've learned that through a lot of different obstacles that I've faced in my life, is that life's not going to be perfect, and you're going to have moments where you're going to have to reflect. But if you have that positive attitude and you continue being too much, like you can still be yourself and also have those moments of reflection and still move forward with that same attitude.
You talked about obstacles in your life, Luke, and how you face those. And obviously, I'm presuming with a pretty positive attitude. What do you do when you're hurting? How do you kind of connect or even intersect this idea of being positive and being upbeat and being intentional with the fact that there's probably going to be days when you're sad or you're lonely or you're hurting or you're going through something? Like, how do you navigate that? It will be really good for our listeners and viewers to think about that, because they're obviously seeing you, they're listening to you thinking, oh, he's the exception. And I think sometimes when people think that someone's the exception, it's because they think, well, there's not the other side. And so what I'm thinking is, even as you're sharing, I don't think that positivity is in contradiction to empathy. It can run right alongside of empathy.
100%. Yes.
But what do you do in those moments where Luke Woolard is really feeling down?
Yeah. And so this is actually something that we've talked about and with the mentoring group. And I see this in a lot of young men around my age, a lot of college students, is that a lot of men typically, if they have these feelings, they tend to just bottle them in and not talk about them. And I used to do that when I was younger. A lot of times, because I was trying to be positive and I was trying to spread energy to those around me, I would bottle in my negative thoughts, my sadness, things that I had going on in my life. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that it's okay to reach out to people and tell them how you're feeling. Like still every week since I've been at college, I call my parents, if I'm sad, if I'm happy, no matter how I'm feeling. Like if I have down moments, I call my parents, I call a friend, I talk to one of my roommates, and I've learned that it's good to talk about your feelings. You'll feel so much better if you talk about your feelings and you don't just bottle them in, because you can use that as a reflection point and then it'll help you move on from there and keep being positive. But I've learned that it's good to build those kind of relationships with people to where you can talk about your feelings, because then when that person has those same feelings, they'll feel comfortable coming to you and talking to them. So that's what I've learned over time, is by being there for people when they're struggling. I know that I'm always going to have people to go to as well. And it's okay to struggle. Even with this positive attitude that I carry and being too much, no one's perfect. You're going to have moments where you're sad, you're lonely, you're anxious, you're nervous. And it's good to talk about that, talk about those feelings with the people you care about, and have those moments of self-reflection, because it's going to make you a much stronger person.
For sure. It sounds to me, and I know you pretty well, but I've learning more about you even as we sit here in the studio, is that you live life, Luke, all out. Whether it is expressing emotion, whether it's working through challenges, whether it's being involved, whether it's bringing positivity. But yet you've kind of pulled back the curtain and let us see, there's also struggle. Struggle is normal. We did a podcast entitled Struggle is Normal. And I think it's important for people to understand that you can be a lot and be all in while being fully human and fully alive. 100%. So final words for our viewers and listeners, maybe it's to folks your age and in kind of that first season of their lives, but also, or second season of their lives, early second season of their lives. But you can also talk to us old guys, right? So us folks that have kind of been down the path a little longer than you, as you think about this whole notion of being too much, because that's really your encouragement in the 3 words. Any final words or thoughts for us as you kind of wrap up the conversation?
For sure. Yeah. I think one of the big things that goes with being too much is being yourself. And we talked about this earlier, like people are going to judge you no matter how you act. You could be the world's most perfect person and there's still going to be people out there that judge you. And a lot of it kind of goes with putting yourself outside your comfort zone. So whether you're a 20-year-old college student or you're 50 years old, like you're still, there's still time to grow. There's still time to put yourself outside of your comfort zone, because that's what's going to help you be too much in a sense. If you go outside your comfort zone, whether it's saying hi to a stranger, maybe you're in class, like if you're a college student, if you're in class, you're at the dining hall, like putting yourself out there, introducing yourself to someone, whether you're at work, you're 45 and you're at work, like putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and challenging yourself and making those choices each day. Because like I mentioned earlier, confidence and positivity, it's not born in you. It's a choice that you make every day to go out to spread positive energy, to be yourself as a choice. And I encourage all of our listeners to just take that chance on yourself, because it is inside of you. It's in you to be the person that you want to be. You just have to put yourself outside your comfort zone and make those choices day by day to see the change in your life that you want.
I love it. As your friend and as your mentor, let me go on the record and say, I don't think you're too much. I think you're just right. And so I'm glad that you have, even at this young age, really begin to set the pace for your life, and not only for yourself, but as an encouragement to those around you, but also for those of us who at times get a little older and begin to get settled in our ways. It's good to be challenged to get out of our comfort zone and occasionally be too much. Thanks for being in the studio today, Luke, and we'll look forward to having more conversations in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it. It was great to be here.
Thanks again, friends, for listening to today's episode. And just as a reminder, we really love being on this journey with you. If you want to go deeper with us, go to dmbcoaching.com/subscribe to subscribe to our DMB Coaching monthly newsletter, where you'll get tips and ideas and insights about how to become the very best version of yourself. So until we see you next time, thank you so much for being here.